Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to view Minnesota Housing's tutorial on preservation. This presentation will highlight where to find preservation documents on Minnesota Housing's website, details regarding the pre-application, risk of loss thresholds, other preservation criteria, project types, and dual applications. The preservation page on Minnesota Housing's website contains essential information needed to meet preservation application requirements. From Minnesota Housing's homepage and within the Multifamily Rental Partners column on the right side of the screen, select Funding. Once on the Funding tab, select Preservation. The preservation page contains information on the pre-application, as well as links to the risk of loss workbooks and the preservation geographic priority area maps. If you are seeking 9% tax credits for preservation, a mandatory pre-application is required to be completed by May 16th. A technical assistance meeting is no longer required, but is strongly encouraged. The preservation page on the Minnesota Housing website contains a link for requesting the technical assistance meeting, as well as links to all the pre-application materials. The pre-application must be submitted in its entirety. However, applicants are encouraged to share some materials such as the project workbook or risk of loss spreadsheets with the assigned underwriter prior to a technical assistance meeting, so that Minnesota Housing staff can provide initial feedback on whether the project meets the criteria for preservation points. Following the pre-application submission, Minnesota Housing staff will issue a preliminary letter of determination regarding the project's eligibility for preservation points. The applicant does not need to resubmit the preservation documentation with the June RFP full application. Only the agency letter must be submitted. An applicant will not be eligible to claim preservation points on a 9% tax credit application unless they have received a preliminary determination letter that states that the project is eligible to claim preservation points. Preservation applications are evaluated to the following criteria. These criteria are the same for both tax credit and deferred funding applications. First, does the project meet one of the three risk of loss thresholds? The risk of loss thresholds will be reviewed on the next slide. Second, is the project located in a preservation geographic priority area? Third, have 15 years passed since initial project closing or last placed in service date for tax credits? And fourth, what is the preservation project type? Is it existing federal assistance or critical affordable units? These criteria and the documentation requirements can be found in the 2018 HTC self-scoring worksheet and 2017 Deferred Loan Priority Checklist on the Multifamily Common Application page of the website. There are help texts for both of these documents. We strongly encourage all preservation applicants, even those not required to submit a pre-application, to meet with agency staff given the various criteria that must be met. The risk of loss thresholds remain the same as last year. They are market conversion, critical physical needs, and diminished owner capacity. One of the three thresholds must be met for a property to be considered eligible for preservation funding. Market conversion risk is when the property may be converted to market rate within the next 5 years given the property's physical condition and the local housing market. This is evidenced by the 3-year conversion model and other documentation. The critical physical needs risk is when the housing assistance is at risk because the cost to address the property's existing critical needs exceeds the amount of existing reserves by more than $5,000 per unit. This is evidenced by the 3-year capital needs model and other documentation. Diminished owner capacity risk is when the housing and the federal assistance are at risk given a decline in the capacity of the current owner to maintain the housing as decent, safe, and sanitary. An ownership transfer is required. This is evidenced by documentation of foreclosure action, ongoing lack of compliance with lenders or terms of federal assistance, bankruptcy, insolvency, unpaid taxes and utilities, and other adverse conditions. There are 2 additional criteria that apply to any project seeking preservation funding. The first is the preservation geographic priority areas. These are areas in which there is job growth, household growth, or a large affordable housing gap. Job growth information was updated in January 2017. The preservation page contains a link to statewide maps of the priority areas. Individual project addresses can be mapped using Minnesota Housing's Community Profiles, an interactive mapping tool found on the agency's website. The second is the 15-year threshold. 15 years must have passed since the initial loan closing or most recent tax credit placed in service date. Preservation has two project type categories, and the points awarded are based upon the project type. The first is existing federally assisted, and is defined as any project receiving project-based rental assistance or operating subsidies under HUD, Rural Development, NAHASDA, or other program. The program must not be scheduled to sunset or expire. Properties that have converted their type of federal assistance through the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program Component 2, also known as RAD 2, are eligible. Please note that for the 2017 RFP, units covered by a rural development mortgage, but which do not have rental assistance, are no longer counted as federally assisted units. For existing federally assisted units, points are awarded based upon the number of assisted units and the percentage of units that are federally assisted. New this year, projects located within economic integration census tracts will receive a greater number of points for their percentage of assisted units. The second category is critical affordable units, which are defined as any housing with a current recorded deed restriction or income restriction at or below the greater of 80% of statewide area median income or area median income. This includes existing public housing units, including those converting through the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program Component 1, also known as RAD 1, rural development funded units without rental assistance, existing tax credit units, developments with federal assistance that are not included under federally assisted, and other programs with restrictions limiting income and rents. Additionally, to receive points, critical affordable units must also claim and be eligible under the CERV's lowest income tenants rent reduction priority, option 1 or 2, and option 3. Developments with critical affordable units are eligible for 6 points. A dual application is an application submitted with two financial structures and corresponding funding requests. One of those structures includes 9% tax credits. A dual application is required for any project with 40 or more units that is seeking preservation points for a 9% tax credit application. Please refer to the Common Application Checklist help text, which was released April 17th. For more information, please visit our website or contact Ann Heitlinger at the email address or phone number listed.